But when we actually went to give birth at the hospital, she did not have a good experience there. It got to the point where like I was gonna write like a testimonial thing about like how bad it was, but then when I prayed to Saint Joseph, I'm like, I probably shouldn't do that. I'm being serious. Like it's like I was really angry for her. I don't want to get into too much detail of the bad experience, but there is one thing that's funny that I do want to share. They took us to the wrong baby in the NICU.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Are you sure St. Joseph wasn't like, send it?
well, I was kind of like, I wrote it very critically because of it was very angry, right? Very passionate in it. But you know what I mean? Like with things like that, you got to pick and choose your battles,
yes.
right? But that was just one thing of many.
Wait a minute. Did you guys like go up to the glass and you were like, oh,
so,
baby?
Kinda. So what happened was the baby had like
messed up,
like those like pieces of cotton on its eyes and like tape over it, and it was in like a UV light. It was like, and we're like, and Marin's like, what did they do to our baby? You know what I mean? Like she was fine or whatever. And then they came in, they're like, oh no, that's not. And I took pictures of it. I think it wasn't the right baby. And they're like, no, your baby's over here. Like, okay.
Why are we here?
Yeah. So then I went. And later we saw the parents whose baby it was and didn't say anything. The hospital didn't want us to say it either. But like we went over to the other room and there she was, and she was fine, and she was drinking her bottle and didn't have the thing over the UV light. She was sitting in a thing.
Bro, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
That's wild.
But yeah, so like to make a long story short, we were like, let's do a home birth.
Welcome to The Rich Dawn, where eternal beatitude begins in this life. I'm Kyle Dean, and today I have with me Brian Mrugalski, an avid gamer, a Dynamis OG member, and a practicing Catholic. Brian, how are you today?
I'm doing well today. How are you, Kyle?
I'm doing so well. Thanks so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt. So OG in the sense that Brian was there from really the kind of like the beginning of Dynamis. Like we started under the bishop in 2016. We put on a retreat together, specifically Brian's uncle, Johnny Tomasello, who has been on The Rich Dawn. Highly recommend people go check that episode out after this one and get his book, Warrior to Warrior. And we put on a Warrior to Warrior Dynamis retreat back in 2017. We had like a Buffalo Bill. I ended up sharing for the first time ever my testimonial on surviving trauma. Like that was kind of really intense, and really got to know you a lot better. Like we had bonfire, we had an overnight, and you met your now spouse.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then in 2018, Dynamis was going to launch this like video series that never ended up happening. So we just have this like YouTube channel with one video with you on it. Just sharing about where your faith life was at back then. And now here we are all these years later to check in now that you're a married man, a father, and say, what's new?
Oh, all kinds of stuff is new. Yeah, I got married in 2021, so it was right after COVID.
Yeah.
And thanks be to God, because when we were gonna get married, they were like, all right, so you can like have your wedding reception. We had it at Becker Farms. You were there, obviously.
Oh, it was excellent.
Yes. It was really cool. They were really nice to us and stuff. But aside from the point, they told us originally there was only 40 people allowed at the wedding. And then like at the last second, they were like, oh, well, COVID's kind of going away. You can have as many people as you want. And we were like, yes.
Yeah.
So we were able to have the wedding
Let's be real,
the way that we pictured it.
They found out about your Michael Jackson dance moves, and they were like, we need more people to see this.
That might have been slightly part of it. But
that was so epic, dude.
Yeah. I still it's funny because we didn't have an actual videographer for our wedding, but we did have somebody that was like did it for like really cheap, who was like not starting out, but was not professional and just kind of like,
Sure.
you know what I mean?
Getting their feet wet.
Exactly. And she got the dance pretty good. And I found it the other day because we had it on a thumb drive that I lost. And it had all our wedding pictures and videos and stuff on it.
Yeah.
And then I found it the one day and I went back and that was like one of the first videos I clicked on.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. I actually had to make the song spliced a certain way so that I could show the full dance to the level that my family wanted to see it, for the people that knew that I did that. So
Yo, I'm not gonna lie, man. The dance was so good. I think I had some video footage just from the iPhone, and we've got it in like the intro to this channel. As you know, I've shown it to you before. And yeah, man, can't thank you enough for showing everybody an incredibly good time. This dude knows how to thriller, y'all. So. Well, actually, let's start with that. Where did you even like learn how to do that? Did you just have a passion for that?
So what happened was my dad had this DVD. It was called like Michael Jackson's Number Ones or something. And it was like a white cover DVD. It like showed him doing the tippy toe thing. And it had all the music videos up until like 2001 or something on it of all his biggest hits. And I loved the dancing on it, and there was one bonus disc that came. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. Like, there was also a Thriller 25th anniversary CD, and it came with the DVD of his first performance of Billie Jean live for the Motown 25 thing. So in there, he did the moonwalk for the first time and all the dancing. And my mom knew how to moonwalk, and my dad knew how to moonwalk. So I was like, they got to show me how. Okay. So my mom actually was the one that taught me how to do it. She actually learned that in school for like some like thing she had to do when she was in school. And then I started practicing it. And my dad, because he worked out downstairs, had a wall with mirrors that just went across the whole way. So I could look at myself to see if I was doing it right. So I tried to moonwalk across the mirrors and the floor. And then eventually there was the other moves. I didn't know what they were that Michael Jackson was doing. So YouTube was still like not quite as good as it is now in terms of finding specific type of content.
Yes.
But I looked up and found the videos and found out like, oh, this is called the heel groove. This is called this. This is called that. And it was just like random people that with like low res cameras, like taking pictures of their feet and stuff like that. And I copied it, and I got good at it and practiced it and put the music on downstairs, and I would try to dance to the stuff. And eventually I got good enough at it where like I was at my Uncle Johnny's wedding. Actually, speaking of Uncle Johnny, it was his wedding, and I was there and I showed it off for the first time. Like I snuck some stuff out there and everyone's like, you could do that. And then every subsequential, whatever that word is, of wedding. Subsequent. Thank you. I don't know how to say that word. Wedding or party afterwards, I just had to keep doing it. And they're like, Brian. Anytime Michael Jackson came on, I had to dance to it. So it became like a family staple for a little while.
So one thing I just learned, two things that stick out there. One, kids, anything you put your mind to, you can do it. It's called mirror neurons. You know, just get the thing in front of you and get passionate about something. And two, both your parents know how to moonwalk.
Yeah. My dad did it in his sandals the first time. He did it in a pair of flip-flops the first time I ever see him do it.
Was it like back when they still had home economics in school? They also had like moon dancing class?
I don't know. My mom told me that she learned it because she had to do some talent thing or something at her school. And she got grouped up with these girls who knew how to do it and said, we're doing it as part of the routine. So they taught my mom, and that's how she learned it. I have no idea how my dad knows how to do it. He just did it one day in the kitchen. And I was like,
that's it. We need to get his dad on here to figure this out because I have so many more questions. But so moving right along that, I introduced you as an avid gamer.
Yeah,
you're representing it with the shirt right now. You know, we've done some Super Smash in our day.
Oh, 100%.
And bro, you give me a run for my money, man. We've gone back and forth. I'm a big gamer as well. And so I guess I just want to ask, like, where did that come from as well in terms of like a passion, and how did you get so good at that?
I actually credit my oldest sister. Her name's Cassandra. My earliest memories of playing video games are as early as 4 years old, even 3 years old.
Same.
It's weird because my daughter is 3 years old. But she we lived in a house before we moved into the one my parents are still in now, and my earliest memories are being in the basement there playing Mario 1 and Mario 3 for Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yes.
And Cassandra liked the games, so she showed us how to play them. And then when I got to the new house and started having those memories, PlayStation 1 was the thing. So I was playing like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, and like, you know, when you play games when you're that young, you die and it takes you 10 years to beat the game, but when you do, it's like a huge accomplishment. Yes. And then as I got older and different games came out, my brothers were into it too, so we'd all play, and then online gaming became a big thing. And then I got into like emulation, being able to go back and play like the retro games and stuff. So yes. Now most of the time I play older games that are emulated. I don't really play too much of the newer titles that come out. So like right now I'm playing Kingdom Hearts, the first one. Yeah. So, but the original one, not the final mix version.
Yes.
But yeah. So
I remember, I was real big into gaming too. Similar, like 3 or 4 first memories. I remember people having like the computer loading games from like the late 80s. And it was just like pixelated adventures where, you know, like if you wanted to fight bad guys in a cave, it was almost like a proto Zelda game. And it was just, it was a lot of imagination. You had to like imagine what was actually happening. And they'd have like a picture on the front box of the game that was like this epic artwork. And then you're actually playing it and you're like, where is this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, man. So we had the NES. It was the first and the third. I think we played a little bit of Mario 2 as well. That one was really different because it was originally supposed to be in like Japan. Like the lost levels would have been Mario 2.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I remember when you get the Game Informers or whatever, like when Kingdom Hearts came out, like that got like I think a 10 out of 10. Like that was considered like a very high quality. I haven't played that one, but I did play Spyro plus Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon. And so yeah, man. So kindred spirits, man. Kindred spirits. So what do you think that you know, I remember growing up when they were like gaming is bad for you or it rots your brain or this or that. But now they're actually saying how gaming is like, you know, it can help you with dexterity. It can help you with agility. Certain people that end up going into the military are doing like very honorable or noble causes for civilization, for humanity, like actually need these skills. Like if you want to man a UAV, for example, like unmanned aerial vehicle. So it almost seems like the stigma that used to be associated with gaming has changed. And I also remember growing up in the era when they said it was really more for boys, but it's like for anybody. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
What has it been like to witness that transformation throughout life?
I actually think it's pretty cool because like you said, it was like a boy thing, and you know, video games obviously was a developing technology rapidly. Like think about like decades, right? So like if you think like 1980s, it's pixelated Mario, right? And then all of a sudden you have Sonic blasting across the screen in like 1991 or 2, and then you've got full 3D like Crash Bandicoot in like 95 or 96. That wasn't even a full decade.
Mario 64.
Yeah, Mario 64 too. You know what I mean? Like those types of things. And then it went from like gaming for the experience just for entertainment. And then it slowly became, well, we have different verticals that we can tap into from the gaming. So just some back history on me. So I don't deal with the gaming side as much, but I'm familiar with it because I'm tied to Microsoft because I have to support them in my job. So Xbox, obviously, being a big thing. And Microsoft is huge advocates in their gaming division to bring gaming in that sense to beyond just entertainment, right? Like if you think of, you ever heard of Minecraft Education?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff. They were like not the first people to do that thing, but the first people with mind share to do that thing, right? To be able to be like, hey, we have an edition of Minecraft that's focused on literally teaching you how to program and build and use things that normally you would have just done to mindlessly have fun for hours to actually being able to strategically do things, right?
And like gain skills.
Exactly. Yeah, gain skills. And then people who got good at at that were able to like get jobs at Microsoft and Google and Amazon and all these places, right, that needed that. So it even led to like opportunities for people, like individuals who got good at it. And then obviously, you know, it's not quite gaming in the same space, but I know that they try to get into like the people like developmentally disabled in trying to like bring that technology in to help them with that kind of stuff. And yeah, and more competition around it now. There wasn't as much competition now. Like you have these people that team up and win like $1 million if they win a championship, right? So like it's being taken as a serious sport. It brings people together, as you know, like when I have the video game tournaments that we host, everyone just has a great time, and it can really bring people together too. So, you know, making that the catalyst for things like that. So
yeah. And Brian does a great job with that. Like this dude got like trophies ready to go. Like we had like the seeds, you had like, you know, the whole bracket system set up. And, you know, and it gets people excited about it. Like I remember the progression. You speak of Microsoft, man. Like I remember when Xbox came out, like Halo was my jam, like November 15th, 2001. And then Halo 2 came out on November 9th, 2004. And Xbox Live, I think, came out in 2004 as well. But like it didn't have some super killer titles until Halo 2 was a part of it. And that was my introduction to online gaming. And it just like the idea of being able to like talk to people from anywhere without even needing to have like a telephone. Sometimes you would just like make friends with people and you would sit in the gaming lobby just to chat.
I've done that a bunch of times.
Yeah. Like I had this one guy, it's almost like a modern version of a pen pal, like System of a Down X. Like that was like the guy. And he was from Texas. And like to this day, decades later, like it's crazy. It's been over 2 decades since then. Like it's like we hopped on like I think a year ago and it was just like, yeah, man, I've got kids now. Oh, I got kids now too. Like this is what we're doing. And you know, you were just saying like I got a kid now who's 3 and it's like these are my earliest memories. It's like it's wild, man. Next generation's here.
So I actually want to add on top of what you said, because you made a really good point about it, is that so my father's side of the family lives in North Carolina, so not here, right? So we only ever see each other a handful of times, or we did, right? So what ended up happening was I didn't get a cell phone until I was like 17 years old. I was, you know what I mean? I never really wanted one, but I finally got one eventually, and my cousin Jason got one too. So we started talking and texting, and I'd never done stuff like that before, but we're like, hey, you like this game, right? Yeah, I like this game. So we started playing video games online together. And then my other cousin, his younger brother, came in and started playing with us too. And then eventually it turned into like, we had this summer, I would call it like this summer of video game fun. And like, ladies and gentlemen, don't do this, but like, we would like, say we got up at 10 in the morning and played and started at 10, we'd finish at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
and it was great when you're like a teenager, right? I was like 17, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, and then it built a relationship there that we previously didn't have. Because again, remember, we only saw each other a handful of times over the course of years, right? So then I went from that to almost talking to them daily. And then it turned into, we should visit each other. And I would like fly out to North Carolina. I'd hang out with them. You know what I mean? We'd go and do stuff, and we did more things in person as we were closer to adulthood. And I could drive and I could buy my own plane ticket and make those types of things happen and coordinate. And it turned into a really great friendship that we were able to create, even though we're family, but still, you know, it could have just been, oh, I'll see you next year. And it turned into like something more, right? So that was gaming actually brought and fostered that relationship that we had. So that was really cool.
Well, and they say friends are the family you choose. And, you know, it's like you have to love your family, but you don't always like your family. But when you can like your family, like, because they're friends as well, like it's a win-win, right? Because, you know, they say blood is thicker than water. Different people have different like philosophies on that. But it's super important to develop those familial bonds. And you know, however it happens. Like I remember even just before, I went a little out of order on this, but just before the Xbox Live came out, before that it was LAN parties.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
dude, like that was Halo 1. Like we would, you know, anybody the Halo gamer, you know, the original OG, like the Blood Gulch was the big map for like when you want to spread out and have a lot of people. And for some reason the pistol was like so OP, it was overpowered to where like you could snipe someone like 3 shots and you're done from across the map. So that would be like what we would do in the LAN parties. And you know, you'd have, for anybody who doesn't know what LAN, like you have to hook up the Ethernet cable and like physically have multiple Xboxes and multiple televisions within a space
Local
together.
area network.
Yeah, local area network. And so you'd be like yelling across the room to other people. And I don't know if this is a little before your time or if it was during your time, but like Balls energy drink. Well, have you ever heard of that?
No.
Balls, BAWLS energy drink. We're not affiliates. I'm assuming they probably still exist. But dude, it was like this like blue glass bottle energy drink, and it had like little ball like bumps on the drink, and it was just straight sugar and like whatever, you know, like a whatever, like a Monster of the day.
Yeah.
But it's like, but if you're a gamer, this is the drink you have to drink. So you'd be yelling at each other, talking crap or nonsense to the other room, and like, give me a Balls, and it's like, it doesn't sound right, but whatever, you know. That was gaming. You know,
I remember Jolt was the one that everyone thought was cool. They were like, oh, you got to they don't make that anymore, but they used to be Jolt. It was like, oh man, you got to get a Jolt.
Yes.
There was a blue raspberry one that was pretty good, I got to say.
Was it legit?
Yeah.
Was it legit?
It was pretty good.
Yeah, man. And then you had some of the like really esoteric kids that would get like the Asian stuff. Like you could go to like an Asian specialty shop, and I don't remember the name of the drink, but you'd like hit the top and it would have a glass ball.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I went to one of those stores. I forget where it is around here.
Yeah.
And I bought a 6-pack of them because they sold them there. I'm like, no way, they just sell these in bulk. So I bought the pack and I drank all 6.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Not in one day. But like, sorry, I got to add context to that. Not in a day, but I probably had 2 in one day.
That's awesome. Yeah, man. That was wow. So what you know, what would you say, what is like your artistic outlet now? Because I know when you came on and we were doing that shot in Christ the King, like you were sharing a lot about your faith. You were sharing a lot about, you know, like where you were at that time, like wanting to pray rosaries. And you'd also mentioned that you were big into art. Like, are you still doing that nowadays, or what? Like, if not, what's changed? Has it been having family life, or?
I would say that too. So it's actually a kind of a mix of things. There's like, you know, there was a complete stoppage. And now they're, you know, with like AI coming out and stuff like that, there's almost like a resurgence happening personally for me in terms of what I'm able to visualize and get out of it from things I had been able to do previously.
Sure.
But going
because of it being a time saver?
Yeah, that, and because I just never, like, I plateaued and then never tried to improve upon that. But I would say one of the reasons I actually stopped was because I had a circle of friends around me that were very encouraging. And then those circle of friends, we didn't become friends, but everything was left in bad blood. Okay.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So what ended up happening is they were like, you're this, you're that, you're a terrible person, that kind of thing. So I got stung by it and then never went back. So
no way.
Yeah. So that was actually that, not quite a faith-based for the reason why I stopped the artistic side of it, but just because I had that bad taste in my mouth and I dismissed all of the, I don't want to call it, let me find the right word, popularity for what I was worth at the time. And I lost all of that because I just wiped it clean. I'm like, I'm out of here. I can't, this is just too toxic for me. So I deleted all my art, all my, you know, the views and favorites and everything that I had accumulated over different platforms just got wiped out. So getting back into it was difficult because it was just a different time, different styles of art, things like that. You can't like go back, like if there's a time and season for things, right? So
absolutely.
But Yeah, so that was it. I know that's not a good reason why, but that was, that was part of it.
Well, no, I appreciate you sharing the rawness of the authenticity of that.
Yeah.
Because, there's it's tricky because if it's your passion to the point where it's almost like a part of you, or it's a way for you to have an outlet that helps you to be the best version of yourself, then you would almost want to prioritize finding a way to get back into it in spite of the once support network that's not a support network anymore. Or it could just be one of those things, because I don't know enough. I just remember what you shared last time, and I don't have any more level of depth in terms of being able to like more deeply appreciate how much it meant to you. But
yeah, and plus, not things I'm willing to share on the podcast, but there were other things beyond that. That one I was willing to share kind of vaguely with you.
Sure.
There's some other things too that I was working on that same thing. It was just kind of like it changed too much. I lost some reasonable control over some things, right? And I say reasonable, right, because obviously you don't always have full control, but you try.
Absolutely.
Right. So but once it went beyond reason, then it's kind of like, well, now this is just ridiculous.
Got to recalibrate.
Exactly.
Got to recalibrate.
And then you just have to kind of change what you're doing. And yeah. But with the AI stuff, though, it's pretty cool because, like, even though I never got to the place that I thought I should have been or should have strived to get to,
yeah,
what's cool about AI is it can help me conceptualize things without actually needing to do it. So at work, so I have two lives with AI. I'm an AI engineer at work for generative AI, pre-sales, right? So I have to sell specifically Microsoft Copilot, but I have to be competitive and understand like how ChatGPT works, Gemini, Grok, all of those different solutions that exist out there for people who are trying to adopt it for business purposes.
Right.
But as you use it, you get more creative outside of just business purposes, right? You think like me, obviously my brain goes to artistic, right? Because there's always that inclination there, right? So I even like filtered in some old drawings and old rough things in there just to see if I could get AI to take the framework that I already built, not at the skill set that I wished I was at, and it was able to turn it into what I always wanted it to look like.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool. And I figured that out just by accident. But when it did come out, I was like, oh man, now that I see it, I could totally draw it now or create that now that I've seen something else create my vision. But one thing I guess you could say where AI helped is that it was able to create that vision without me having to spend 7 or 8 years of drawing I lost to get that result. It was just the framework I needed to conceptualize it. So that was pretty neat.
So this is super interesting, man.
Yeah.
And I want to say just one more time, thank you again for the vulnerability with which you shared that. We obviously will shelve that for offline, but I think that it's cool that you were willing to go there insofar as it's like, you know what? I was able to transcend something that was once toxic and not lose something that's a piece of myself, because you just said it right there. You just said like, like being artistic is like a big part of me. So it doesn't sound like you completely wanted to give it up just because of some of that other ancillary stuff, let's say. And now AI has come into your life in a way that it's been able to be a positive for you. So maybe we can shift to that more because, I have a lot of tech in my background as well. I'm a life coach by trade right now. Mm-hmm. And I help people to kind of like define and align their goals with God's plan for their life. So it's like, it's a little niche, like, because a lot of people don't focus on a faith-based component of doing that. But, there's to even broach the AI subject writ large, and you've just identified yourself like you're kind of like a subject matter expert in this realm, you have to get over the stigmas that are initially associated with it. I know that, like, I think I just saw the latest stats, like it's far below 50% of Americans use AI, like way below 50%. Like it's not taken off in this country as much as it has in some other countries. And I think it's because a lot of people are really skeptical of it still. So, and obviously if you're trained to sell it, I'm sure you know those sticking points.
I do.
And you know how to like get people to think about it in a different way. But I'm more interested in, like, I don't want to just hear, I don't want to like throw you into your day job mode because you're not here to work right now. But more from like I do this in my free time because it actually like builds me up or it inspires me. And I almost feel like that speaks for itself. So like, what would you say to somebody that's like on the fence about, thinking of AI as a good thing, or maybe there's a part of it that's, sketchy and maybe you agree with that some of it is sketchy and you'd be willing to say it now, even though it's something you have to sell other times. Like where is your heart truly at about this?
Well, it depends on who you are and how you'd want to use it. So one of the biggest things actually is exactly that, how you'd want to use it. A lot of people don't even know how to use it. And you'd be shocked. Even like business professionals are like, okay, I have this extremely powerful tool and I don't know what to do with it. And you could also compare it to the internet when it was first becoming publicly available, like in the 90s, like when Windows 95 and that type of thing.
Right.
That would be like, I'm stealing this from a coworker of mine who I work very closely with. He said, that's like going into somebody and saying, oh, teach me how to use the internet in 1995. People are, oh, just teach me how to use AI. No, it's not that simple, right? The internet's got all kinds of stuff. If we think about the internet in the 90s, there's websites, there's email, there's understanding the operating system, there's word processing. There's all kinds of different things that people weren't familiar with that made up the internet, right? Because the internet bled into other things too, right? Not strictly the World Wide Web, but everything that entailed getting it even running, right? So AI follows the same philosophy. You can't just look at it as like, oh, it's AI. No, the AI that everyone's talking about is generative AI. That's the official term for it. And then people are afraid that if they use it, that it's somehow going to learn things about them that could be used in a malicious way, or that they could put something sensitive in there and it would be essentially given to whoever the AI person that owns it, and they could
overlords.
Exactly. I was thinking that in my brain, but I didn't want to say that. But that's exactly what it was.
AI
right?
overlords.
But here's the thing: is that most of these manufacturers of these AIs understood that and saw the skepticism. So like, oh, we got to create solutions for these people. So obviously, because I work most closely with Microsoft, I understand there's the most.
Sure.
So and
they're connected to ChatGPT, right?
Yes, they are.
Like
they own 49% stake in OpenAI.
Right.
So I'm going to get overly technical really quick.
Let's go.
But
you've been warned. Skip 3 minutes ahead if you're not into that.
Yeah, but I'll try to keep it simple. I won't go too crazy. But
sure. No worries. I could keep pace.
So one of the biggest things that manufacturers saw that they could profit off of AI was in productivity, not so much creativity. There definitely is a market for creativity, but productivity was the big thing. Like, imagine being able to go in Microsoft Word and be like, write me like a 7-page paper on everything you know ever about this topic and put it in a framework that I can read in like 1,000 characters, or I said 7 pages, a bit more than 1,000. Sure. But you get the idea, right?
Yeah.
You can
restrict
or make it expand as much as you want. And it just does it in like under 10 seconds. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's really powerful, right? And for people who run businesses, that could be really great. Think of like Microsoft Excel, right? People use Excel for their databasing. Imagine being able to just go in there, oh, build me this formula that does this and automatically sort through this data and find this and find the common denominator here and build me a pie chart that makes it do this. And it just does all of that. And you just took hours of work that you normally would manually have to do in those applications, right?
Yes.
Microsoft has mindshare in productivity apps, building a PowerPoint for you automatically. It can do things like that, right? So people see the value in that, but what they get caught up, again, to the point I made before, is like, it's so powerful. How do I adopt it? How do I deploy it? How do I go about it? And that's really where the challenge comes from, is that the best thing you can do are really two things. One is find the thing that you hate the most or that's the most mundane in your life and see if it can fix it. If it can, that usually opens up the door in your own brain, not just from some adoption kit someone sent you that's 20 million pages big and you got to get drink from like 3 fire hoses. No, figure out how it works for you first. Then you start to pick up, oh, well, I could use for this and this and this. And that's how I was able to figure it out for myself, right? And then the other thing would be, I forgot where I was going with that. So there's find the one mundane thing, and then I'm losing it now. Sorry. But
it's okay.
Going back to just the productivity side of it, people see that, but then the next question that usually follows up after those things, after like the adoption pieces, well, how is Microsoft seeing and using my data? Like a big company like that, Google, Amazon, that kind of thing. So Microsoft's unique relationship with OpenAI puts them at an advantage, in my personal opinion, because ChatGPT has it set up where if you're using like a free version of it, the data that goes in there is being used. So anyone who's a ChatGPT user, your data can train the model unless you pay for like a premium subscription, right? There's Plus and Pro, I believe what they're called. And there's like a function you can use to where they don't, you could put sensitive info in there and you could toggle it on and it won't use the data. But what Microsoft did is took it a step further, and they get a read-only copy of their large language model from OpenAI. If they get almost like as like a copy paste into Microsoft's ecosystem, and then when you're logged in with your Microsoft account for work, because it's a read-only copy, there's no way to train a read-only model. So they could go in there and just get their data and put it in, and it won't do anything. It's well protected because it's within there. And Microsoft has an addendum that's very long of how they say that they'll never use your data for X, Y, Z. Even with that, there's still people that are skeptical. I've run into them. But most people, when they see that and understand the framework, they're like, okay, well, this is great that I'm totally going to use this, right? Obviously, it can get expensive, right? The different pricing and stuff. But once you see the value and how much time you save when you use things like that, it's pretty neat. And I'll share you an example of something outside of Microsoft, for example, because I like to use fun examples instead.
Yeah.
So I'm weird with music stuff. Like I have an Excel file that goes back to 2014 where I have it rank every song that I like, the top 10 songs from that month going back to 2014. Okay. And I have a playlist that I made originally Spotify, moved to YouTube Music, where I can go and then shuffle through that. And it's all the music I ever liked since I started charting. And there's this website called last.fm that tracks every time I play a song. So it gives me the list of by order of how much I listen to certain songs. That's how I get my top 10. I'm really weird with this stuff. There's a huge community of other people that do it. So I'm not completely weird because I'm not the only one doing it.
Oh,
there are people that do it, right?
Bro, I've done this too, actually.
And
so I guess I'm weird too.
Yes, exactly.
I would have one of those. Just to jump in for a second, I would have one of those iPod classics back when they came out, and you could get the 160 gigabyte version, and they had a little spinning disc in there. It was like a SATA in these clunk. And now it's like a clunker, but at the time, and I would have every song I've ever had on it. And would like bring it to parties and play all these different playlists, and month in and month out, like the songs that I would listen to the most would show up in an iTunes play count. And I would actually use that and like make my playlists based off of the stuff that I was listening to the most. So if you're weird, I'm weird too.
Yes, then we could both be weird together.
Yeah, man. When you use your brain a little bit with some of this tech finesse, you can really like fine tune your life a bit.
So the reason I'm telling the story is because when you get to the ChatGPT, I was using that for some stuff.
Yeah.
I went in there and was able to plug that data in to be able to generate certain analytics. And I would even went as far as I went on a Billboard's website that make the US charts. And I went back to I tested 1998. The radio songs chart. There's no YouTube videos. There's nothing that exists out there that accurately represented the type of music that was playing on the radio specifically on that chart because it was niche. So what I did is I was able to get all the data, plugged it into ChatGPT through trial and error for like a month, and finally was able to create a format and a system where it was able to show me exactly what songs based on the charts truly were the most popularly listened to and played songs across all different radio formats in 1998. And I had a list and I created a playlist on YouTube with those songs. So like, it's a weird thing. Like, and I shouldn't say, I keep using the word weird, but that was my way of like going outside of the box with it. Is like, I did a very not normal things. People usually go in there and just ask you like, how do I, make a recipe? But well, actually that's pretty cool too. You can like take a picture on your phone of ingredients and be like, what meal can I make out of this?
Yeah.
And it will tell you and give you a recipe, right? That is pretty cool. But that's like now starting to become more of a norm kind of thing, or information gathering. But when you start using your mind to like be like, oh, well, I could use it as an assistant for gathering this data or programming this, or it's got access to all this endless information, you start to come up with things like that, like the playlist, and like I said, you can't get that good at it and understand it and be comfortable with it unless you try it. There are going to be some people who just will never adopt it and they'll just be afraid of it forever. But for the people that are technology enthusiasts or the people that want to use it to make their lives better, you can use it in a way that's productive, I think, more so than in any malicious way.
So, yeah, absolutely. And you're bringing me back to my undergrad studies when we would study needs assessment and technology transfer. Those were two specific courses that we would take. And you would say, everybody has their own parlance, but one parlance that we would use would be like, you'd have your laggards. It's like a bell curve. And the laggards are the ones that are like really slow to adopt something new, whatever the thing is. It could be technology, it could be anything, a process, right? Process managers, project managers can relate to this, even if they're not super tech focused. And then all the way to just like most people. And then you have like the early adopters. And the early adopters like yourself in this specific area are the people that are like the trailblazers of the new frontier of what becomes possible. And, and that's just kind of how it goes in life. So what would you say if we were to say challenge people to revisit what you're touching on right now, and maybe they're more on that laggard side? How can you help somebody to tap into themselves and to discern like what is mundane in their life? Because I feel like some people compartmentalize to the point where they're like, I shoved that into some dark corner of my mind and I don't even think about that anymore. And or it's like it's maybe not the most intuitive thing because of the fact that it's something that they struggle with. And because I struggle with it, I don't know how to like overcome it. How do they purposefully, proactively enter that space to take your advice and then channel it using this technology to develop new breakthroughs?
Yeah. So I would say two things, actually. The first thing is for tech savvy people, I think it's a lot easier because they understand how to interact with programs in general, right? So for those guys, they actually have an advantage. And usually what we found just through data is that people who do tasks on the computer, there's usually a task on the computer that they start with, whatever it may be. I'm just trying to think of an example of somebody or like a mundane thing, but email probably would be the one it's overused, but email is one of them. So there literally are ways that you can, even without using like the Outlook version of Copilot or any email specific generative AI, just ask it to help you rewrite your emails. Or maybe you're a person that like when you type things out, you've got writer's block, or you just kind of throw up when you do stuff, like when you write things.
Yeah.
And AI can take it and turn it into a cohesive thing out of all the knowledge it has of really good emails and letters that are ever written in the world, can then put it into a structure for you where you're like, oh, I'm the kind of person where I throw up on my piece of paper and just put all these words on, and it will go in there and do that for you and make it sound a way that helps you, not only you understand, but the recipient, if there is a recipient of something like that, whether an email, letter, whatever, or even just note taking for yourself, right? So that's like a really common example of like usually people who are like doing that kind of work get started. For people who are not tech savvy or don't really use computers at all, it's a little different because obviously there's a bit of a learning curve if you're not even familiar with how to interact with a program. But let's just say everyone's base level and understands at least how to log into an operating system and go online or on their phone and whatever. So if you know how to do that, you just have to think about like things in your life, right? I like to use that example of the cooking. Maybe like you're somebody who's on a shoestring budget for food and you don't want to get ramen noodles every day, and you want to see if you can start creating things with things you probably think you can't make anything nice out of. Take a picture of it and it will know what those ingredients are and it will put it in recipe for you. Or you might have it too where there's AI now where like you're somebody who struggles with cleaning or clutter, and you want to see how you can take the stuff and organize it a certain way. Well, you can use AI as an outlet to be able to find out what those things are, and using all the knowledge of the world to be able to find a way for you to declutter and get that stuff. To take a step on top of that, there's even apps now where you can take a picture. Even I think ChatGPT can do this. I haven't tried it yet. I've tried like Google's version of it, but you could take a picture of your room and say, help me decorate this room. And it will go and make an image of the room that you had, and it'll decorate it for you and show you what it is. And how much do you think those decorations will cost, or furnishings, if it's going to be like furniture and stuff like that? Oh, it'll be about this much money, and it'll send you links to Amazon or Raymore Flanagan or whatever, right? And it'll go through and give you the things you could purchase and what the budget could be to get it to look that way that you'd want it to, right? So like you could use it for like homey things. You can also use it for advice, right? So, this is obviously, we're Catholic, right? So I've personally used it because it's got the whole Bible, right? So I could go in there and ask it, specifically, I personally like to call out Catholic just because that's obviously my preference, but how would the Catholic Church say this, or has the Vatican or a saint or anyone ever had a comment on this specific thing that maybe I'm unsure of? It will search through and say, oh, well, this saint said this or this happened, and you can use it as a way to gather information if you were unsure about something and you wanted an answer right away. Obviously, you should still, get spiritual direction and stuff, but it's nice to know that you can do that and be able to reference that and get, that is in the Bible here, and it's what I mean? So you can use it for things like that too. So I've used it for things like that, like being able to go and find that kind of information. And then I actually had a conversation with it once. This one's a little bit different. I ended up getting anaphylaxia, but I've never had it before. So I, over the course of time, was talking.
What is that?
It's where you have a severe allergic reaction.
Okay.
And the thing they're scared of, and by they I mean doctors, are of your throat closing up, because then you can't breathe. But like my lips swelled up, my tongue, my feet swelled up, and I couldn't walk on them. But I never had an allergic reaction that bad before. So I was ChatGPT, and it was telling me, you need to go to the hospital. I'm like, it's just an AI. It doesn't know. You need to go to the hospital. And it kept telling me that. And I actually had driven to the hospital and then was afraid to go in, and then went back home to go to bed. But then I woke up in severe pain. I'm like, I got to go to the hospital. And it kept telling me, and I did go, and everything was fine. And the AI's like, see, I told you.
Wait, what? This is so intense, dude.
So like, I use it conversationally as well, right? You can do things like that. And like, obviously, having real people is more, there's more beneficial.
I have to say, I have to throw in a disclaimer on that, because there have been very serious concerns where teenagers are talking to the AI, and it's like becoming like an emotional outlet for them. And
I've heard people use it that way.
And if it gets, if it goes rogue, which they have sometimes, like there have been teenagers that have been bullied by the AI, and it like actually told them to do terrible things I don't even want to repeat on here, and like up to including ending life, and some of them have done that.
Interesting. I honestly didn't hear about any of that stuff.
Yeah, no, that happens. And it can happen. So, and also I think like my upper concentration back in the day was like ethics in information technology, and also like security and privacy and stuff like that. And like net neutrality was a big thing back in the day. And so I'm very passionate about making sure that that's always a part of the conversation. In fact, I just had a woman on recently because we did kind of like we launched a Feminine Genius playlist on this podcast, and we've gotten a lot more female voices in the mix, and we were talking about this briefly. Like it's like she was an addictions and rehab nurse. So she's like been through some really intense stuff, and we were getting into that. And I was saying how, it's weird becoming like an expert in a specific field. And if people outside of your field don't respect it or don't see the value in it, or there's just because people in general, like it's like the cult of experts has become such a thing now that people swing the pendulum too far in the other direction and they don't actually respect experts in a given field, and they might offload it to things like AI, which certain things it's not a correct corollary. Like even with theology, like you really need to understand the intricacies between sacred tradition, sacred scripture, and sacred magisterium in order to know, even if you are reading one of those saint quotes, like there's a lot of saint quotes where the saint said something one off and it's not the mind of the church currently, or it's not. So that's just one example. But I was saying how it's weird to become so adept at something like security and privacy. And we were trained. I was trained at one of the top 3 computing colleges in the nation, like one of the top schools. And we were basically told like Facebook is ipso facto a virus. Like by definition of what a virus is, which is something that is designed to like look into your stuff, sometimes without even really letting you know in a way that's reasonably appropriate. And it's like, so be aware of that and act accordingly. And then all of a sudden you go and you try to put something like that out there. And it's like, if you're up against the lobbyists that are pro that entity, or you get people that are end users and they're so passionate about whatever that platform might be, they just either roll their eyes at you or they look at you like you're weird because it's like, well, wait a minute, all of the Joneses are using this platform. So who are you to say something like that? And it's like, oh, just like the voice in the wilderness that like is an expert on the subject. Like, it's not like an opinion. It's not, and it's not even personal. It's not an axe to grind. It's just like, beware. Like there's another side to this coin in terms of like, if you're taking a picture of a room that you have, and let's say you're low income and you can't get another room for a really long time, and now that room is like in the system. It's like, I don't know. I mean, but then again, you have to kind of come to a place of acceptability as well, because, if you log into a real estate website, they literally call it the Matrix.
That is
like,
true.
It's
You're right,
the
yeah.
Matrix.
You're right.
Right. And it's got, pictures of everything. So if you wanted to go like off grid, you would need to like reorient a room in a way that has never been put on the internet or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, how far do you take it? Right. But it's interesting because, this stuff is out there. And if a lot of people don't even know what the internet is in the mid 90s, or now in the mid 2020s, people don't even know what AI is yet. And we're trying to like learn how to use it. It's like you hope that it's like this thing is more powerful than the most dangerous tool that you could put in your garage. You know what I mean? Like a chainsaw or an acetylene torch or like anything. Like, so you really have to like know how to responsibly handle it. Like, where do you stand with that? Like, is that something that you have noticed is becoming a part of the conversation a lot, or is it
not on the business side?
Well, sure, because you got to make the money.
Yeah, but so one of the big things is, let me tell you a story actually. So Microsoft was actually, I forget the name of the project or the program that it was, but they tried to create what like the first version of what ChatGPT is now and Copilot and all that. And after some finessing with not much effort, they were able, and by they I mean end users who are just using the tool, turned it into a racist. right? They like, you know what I mean? Like seriously.
Oh, wait a minute. Was this where it was like anti-Semitic or something?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was
and it got shut down
years ago or something.
A little longer now.
It was like 7.
Some more like I think around that. I'd want to look it up to see what it was actually called.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring that story up is because one thing that people learned when they built these tools is they are so powerful that they had to build ethics into the system. So there are ethics built in by default, right? Like ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, they all have it. Like you can't go in there and just ask it for illegal things, you know, information how to do certain things. The same way where Google will omit search results from you if you try to do that kind of stuff. And it will end conversations on you if it thinks that the conversations are getting too outside of whatever its ethics boundary was created.
Sure.
Now, this is the next part of it, is that some people, and this is a fair thing to say, don't fully trust the ethics boundary that these organizations put in, right? So think about Facebook and how they're always under scrutiny for privacy of data, right?
Yes.
Google's now being criticized for the same thing. There's some people that are okay with that. They're just like, yeah, you can use my data. I love your services. Yeah, just do it. But for other people that are not okay with that, they have to be like, okay, I'm relying on Microsoft. I'm relying on Google. I'm relying on whatever, that their ethics boundary is built and I can trust it in a way where I don't have to worry about those things. Because there were conversations and I've heard things, and I guess exclusive from this podcast, that even people who work for these manufacturers who said straight up like, oh yeah, if we didn't put any boundaries on this thing would like, this could be like Skynet, Terminator, that kind of thing. And they know that, right? So they limit its ability. So why they focus so much on productivity is because they know that's safe. They know productivity is a safe space, that that it won't, you don't have to worry about it becoming Skynet or Terminator, right? But could it be? Yeah, it probably could. There's robots that they built that run as fast, or sometimes even as faster than human beings, that can be programmed with generative AI. My buddy showed me a video of it. It was powered by ChatGPT, where they had like a robot that you can ask questions for, and it like goes around the room and you can talk to it and stuff. And it was trying to give an answer, and he was talking over it. He's like, be quiet, I'm trying to give you your answer. And it got angry at him and stuff like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I forget the name of it.
Nah, man.
Yeah, I got to look that up. He showed it to me. But like stuff like that, people are already doing things like that, and that is happening in some capacity, because what people can do too, and this is, you know, like we're talking like dark web kind of stuff now.
Yeah.
Is you could build your own models, right? Because the framework's been created. So there are some bad models out there. There are things with no boundaries out there that will circumvent the.
It's like jailbreaking a phone.
Exactly. That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah, you can jailbreak an AI framework. That's, of course, going to be a thing down the road.
100%.
Now, you know that they'll have to have some sort of boundaries on that, kind of like how when drones came out, they had to have some sort of like, because the government's got capabilities
flying in no-fly
we don't
zones.
even know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and they can like take you over if you go somewhere you don't belong.
Mm-hmm.
So there would have to be some sort of like a way to overcome these kinds of shortcomings, because that's the other thing. The controversy of it is those AI hallucinations.
Yes.
Have you heard about those?
I have to talk about. As a salesperson, I don't deliberately bring it up, but I do have to in overly technical engagements. That the hallucinations.
Just don't send this podcast to your customers.
Yeah, it's the official term for the AI got something wrong, essentially.
Well, yeah, but so when it gets things wrong, it like, yeah, they call it like a hallucination because it sounds weird.
That, or it's just like, it sounds so right. Like, you know, have you ever had somebody who be like, oh yeah, you know, like they just straight face like, oh, did you know that Bill Clinton invented sunglasses?
Yeah.
And you say it so confidently, they're like, really? The president? Like, oh no, I was just messing with you.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's almost like it's that like happening to you, but via the AI generating a
I
response
can't
to you.
remember if it was
Yeah.
Steven Seagal or what actor it was. There was like a buddy of mine that was like, this dude is like that guy, where he would like, it wouldn't matter what the topic was. It could be like a specific model of military helicopter, and this guy would talk to you like he invented them.
Mhm.
And you're just like I can't get anything past this guy. He knows everything. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, but when AIs are designed to sound authoritative and then they get it wrong, that's it's an ethical concern, right?
And it's what's cool about the AI too is when it hallucinates, you can correct it. And it's kind of secretly also training the model when you correct the AI to like not make the same mistake with another user. But
Yeah.
being somebody who does like engineering, right? I'm not a true engineer, but that's, engineering. They have it where like I had it happen today. I asked it questions on, no one will know what this means, but I was talking to it about Windows VDA activation on like Microsoft 365 subscriptions, whatever. And I know about it, right? Because I'm an engineer. I just needed it to fill in some holes for me just to make sure I thought of everything. And it straight up was like, oh yeah, no, you could do this. And I'm like, no, you can't. I told it couldn't. And then it's like, oh yeah, you're right. You can't. I'm sorry. It's actually this. I'm like, that's what I was looking for. Right. So if you know what you're talking about, you can challenge it, and it does make the AI better in the long run. But that's a thing. That is a thing. And I have gotten, and like, this is me no bearing. Like, I'm not a salesman right now.
Yeah.
It has gotten it wrong, and I've corrected the AI on it. And it's not mean about it when you correct it. It's always apologetic, right? It's designed to be like, oh, I'm so sorry. You're right. This is this and this and this. And it's like, yeah, it is.
Yes. That's wild, man. Yeah, I know. The latest I heard on it is that it's like at the level of like, I heard someone say 4 PhD students. Like, it's got the intelligence level of 4 PhD students, and give it a year or two and it's going to be way, way beyond that. But when I heard that, I was like, well, what does 4 PhD students mean? Like, who's coming up with these
I was
metrics?
Gonna say, that's a weird metric.
I don't even know what that means.
I feel like, honestly, I think it's underselling it. I think it's probably more than that.
Yeah, it could be like 4 PhD doctors. Like, I don't know. Like, but anyways, yeah, it's incredible to just speculate like where this could all go. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing of your mind with that. But yeah, I guess just shifting gears as we land the plane and come to the waning topics of this. Like, how has like faith life been? How is like being a husband and a father now? Like, we shot this thing and you and your wife, I think by God's grace, your wife will probably be on the podcast soon as well. And, maybe we can find some of these old clips. Like, you guys like shot some stuff when we thought we were going to get another series going back in the day, but the timing just wasn't in the cards. But here we are now. We're doing this podcast, and it's kind of fun sometimes to look back on, when you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and maybe like a freshly newlywed or this or that. And then, you've got a couple kids. And is there any like wisdom that you've gleaned along the way that you're like, I would tell this back to my single self, or I would tell newlywed couples, like, keep this in mind as you get some years under your belt?
Yeah, I would say most of my stuff would actually be warnings. Like,
We're in.
for thought, right?
Yes.
So when it comes to being married and having kids right away, people have different thoughts on what that looks like, whether you're Catholic or not. Like, when I get married, I want to have kids right away. Or, when I get married, I want to wait a little bit for having kids. Or maybe we even wait before we get married and we stay engaged a while, right? You have different flavors of life there. And one thing that I recognize is that if you're going to choose the path of being married and having children right away, you have to remember that, dating is a lot different than actually being married, right? Especially if you're somebody who's following the traditional format, right? Maren and I, waited to be married to do anything that a husband and wife would do, right? The way that we knew was the right way, right? And I say that confidently.
God
it is
bless
the
you.
right way, right?
Yeah.
So what you do is that when you're learning how to be married, and be a father at the same time. And also credit to Marion, because she has to do the same thing being a mother. It's hard because you have to learn, you're still learning how to be married, but then you also have to balance that with being a father too. Right. And it's tough because there's times where I'm like, oh, I should have been focusing on being a husband here, but I was too worried about being a father, or vice versa. Right. So you have to find, if you go that route, to have that balance in making sure that you effectively communicate. I feel like at anything I've ever listened to about any marriage thing, it's always communication seems to be a core concept. And I'm not good with that type of stuff, but I at least know enough to be able to confidently say that that is a thing, right? Communication is key. And it's kind of hard to do that when you're still learning each other, right? Because you don't want to offend each other. You're still kind of in that honeymoon phase. You want to make each other happy, and that's what your focus is, whatever. And then you have to also deal with that while you're, you know what I mean, trying to figure out, am I raising my kid the right way? Am I being too mean to them? Are they at a level of age where I think they understand something, but they don't? I'm just making the kid confused and hurting their development in life or whatever. Like, these are real things, right? And, you know, the same can be said about Marin too, you know, is that, you know, how do you balance that, right? So I feel like if I would have known that, I would have focused on trying to give equal time to both instead of just reactive, like, oh, this happened, I got to take care of this. Oh, this happened. And you're just jumping back and forth between the two. You got to be more proactive, right? Go out there, do the things that you know are good, go out of your way to figure out the things you need to find out, because knowledge is power in that sense too, right? Knowledge of your spouse, knowledge of your children. So that's one thing. And then another thing too, you were asking me where I was in my faith life. So just disclaimer that I was in a unique point when we did that thing at Christ the King.
Christ the King.
Because I was on fire, because I came from a background where I was not, like, I'll just straight up say I was not Catholic, like Catholic by name, didn't actually do the things that someone Catholic should do, or Christian for that matter, right? So I was just in like a resurgence, or not even say resurgence, but my first time ever being like on fire for it. Like, this is great. Being Catholic is great. Loving Jesus is great. And these sacraments, yes. And like all these things, because I wasn't like that at a younger age. I was at that point in my like early 20s, right? And I'm only 30, right? So it's not like that was that long ago. So
you're 30 now, bro?
Yeah, on the dot. But
time flies, man.
I know, right?
Yep.
But yeah, so when it comes to that, like, then when you get married and you have to worry about all the things I just told you about, it almost like tapers off a little bit, because you're so much more focused on the other things and trying to take care of that, because you know, you don't want to be miserable all the time or make your partner miserable all the time. And that's kind of the focus. It's kind of funny because I remember reading it. You might know, because you know all this stuff really well. There's like something in the Bible where like St. Paul even says like, oh, you're better off not getting married and stuff like that. Like, I don't know if that's actually how it's said, but like
he's making the case for celibacy in the priesthood.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if you're celibate, you're not divided between the church and family life. Mm-hmm. So it's better not to get married, but marriage is still good in his eyes.
Yeah, I know. I know that, but I just always figured that like it makes a good point though, is that like you need to, he even says like you worry about these things, but you should really be focusing on trying to increase in holiness, right? Just to make a long story short, right? And that's not just for yourself, but also your spouse and your children too, right? You have different priorities, right? And then obviously with working, you know, once you have a family, it, like, let's be honest, it gets expensive, right? You have to have more money and stuff. And by the grace of God, he always was there just to save me every time when I was like, dude, we're I have no money. This is not happening.
Right.
And then we're able to get where we need to be able to continue on, right? But that was another thing too, is the financial situation. You got to make sure you make good decisions there. And then make sacrifices and stuff for your family. And then if there was I'm trying to think of anything else I would have told myself too. this has nothing to do with actual family and marriage life, but if I could go back, I would have helped my wife with planning the wedding more.
See, Marin, he loves you. That's awesome, man. You thought about that, huh? Did you do like nothing for her, or were you just too busy working on the moonwalking?
I think I spent more time on coming up with that than I came up with. But you know, she planned most of the wedding, and one thing I credit Marin for though is that unlike, you know, and this is I try not to mean offense when I say this, but I've talked to people that are like, I hired a wedding planner and paid them an astronomical amount of money. And, you know, I didn't even know that the way the napkins faced mattered. And I didn't realize how important that was. And like they take it seriously. Wow. And it's like, you actually care what, like, you're taking that person seriously. You know, that's me judging, but you know what I mean? Like, I just thought that was ridiculous. And Marin was very simple. Right. Yeah. And I always appreciated simple because I tried to be that way deliberately and just kind of naturally, just with the kind of personality that I have if I'm being looking inward. But
sure. Self-reflective.
Yeah. But like, that's one thing I really appreciated about her is that she was like able to do it all herself, even though I should have helped her. But she was able to make it happen and did it in a modest way and in a way that I think turned out really well. She's critical of it, but I think that it was done very well.
Well, and you know, I mean, in one sense, obviously, you can't go back in time, but you can't ever regret allowing the woman to make it what she wants it to be, because they say it's a very important day for the woman. So I mean, you're good to go in that regard. But it also shows that you have an intentionality. And obviously we've known each other for a long time, yeah. and beyond just any sort of like professional or ministry setting. So you know how I love to joke, and I'm like a goofball a lot of times in my free time. So, you know, it's like sometimes I just like to make people feel comfortable or whatever. But I think that it's really cool how, you know, you're like, especially in the growing years together, I never wanted to offend her. Or like, you know, like I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like upset her. And that shows your level of intentionality, which is a great thing. It's important to maintain that over the years. And then I really love what you said about prioritization as well, because when you were saying about like making sure that you're providing the correct amount of energy, balancing like having a spouse and then also having the children. And as a Catholic, all of that stuff comes quickly. And therefore, it's like you have to like learn all this stuff kind of like all at the same time. And, you know, one thing that, and I'm sure you maybe already know this, but just for the sake of solidarity and to reiterate it for the viewers and listeners, is like you always have to remember that you're a spouse first and then your children come next. Mm-hmm. It's logical, it's organic, it's biological. Mm-hmm. Like that's just the order of operations. But you have to maintain that order of operations in terms of prioritization of the way that you manage your family life, especially as the head, like as a man, because you know, the two of you need to be united. You need to be one in mind, especially in front of the children, because otherwise they're going to see that, you know, the kingdom can be usurped. They'll be like, oh, I don't like what mom said, I'll try to go to dad, or I don't like what dad said, I'll try to go to mom. I don't know if you've started to get that yet.
A little bit, yeah. Mostly food.
They're old enough to do it, but thankfully it's for basic stuff so far. But that is so important. Some people like it might sound like a simple thing, but some people like that becomes a huge aha moment for them. Because sometimes I'll hear it in the language of like some of my clients, for example, where they're like, you know, like I'm a parent and a spouse. And they keep saying it in that order over and over again. I'm a wife, or I'm a mother and a wife. I'm a father and a husband. And when I notice that, I'm like, you know, it's really the other way around. Because that order matters. Like when you flip that order, that could result in divorce, like at the extreme, God forbid. Mm-hmm. Like it can result in usurpation of the heavenly kingdom. You know, as it's reflected here in our earthly kingdoms, because we're made in the image and likeness of God. right? So we're a reflection of what's going on up there, which is order. So yeah, I really appreciate what you said about that. And it's good that you have that level of awareness and again intentionality as it pertains to, just managing your household affairs well. And it's been such a blessing and a joy seeing, the progression and just life playing out in that way. So nice work, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And if Marin is if she's worried about how the wedding day was, I would just say, just remember the moonwalk, No, I mean, obviously you guys did a phenomenal job and, and it's whatever is next is what matters. Right. Is it Brother Lawrence, the Carmelite? He said, like, presence of God. It's all about presence of God. That's the most simplistic way that we can live our spirituality, with the highs and the lows of devotions that come in and out of our lives. Right now we're in the novena to the Holy Spirit, which is the original novena, 9-day prayer from Jesus's ascension to the Pentecost. Whether you're going to have these different devotions come in and out of your life for a season or for a reason or anything that sticks, you have different levels of fervency, right? You had that fervor in your young 20s, and then maybe things more taper out or whatever the thing is, or balance out. The presence of God is always something that needs to be there. And just, all there is now, as Mother Teresa, St. Teresa of Calcutta said, all we have is now. So what's next?
What's next? Another kid.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Marin's pregnant.
Oh my! I think I probably should have known that if I didn't already.
Oh, you're good.
But
I don't think we told too many people, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm finding out right now. That's awesome. Oh my goodness. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
So wait a minute. So let's close on that then. Like, I know we touched on, offline, like, home birthing versus hospital birthing and homeschooling versus the various forms of other different kinds of schooling. Take the floor, man. What do you think? Where's your life taking you in terms of wisdom gained, and then also where you think you might go moving forward?
Okay. Yeah, I fair warning, I'm kind of wishy-washy with it. So here's the thing. Let me just start with birthing, because that one's easier. Schooling is a little bit different because I have my opinions of how I think of school systems and different things. But
Sure.
When it comes to the birthing, so when Ruby was born, that's, Ruby, for the people on the podcast, that's my oldest daughter. She's the 3-year-old I mentioned earlier. So when Marin got pregnant with her, we were all excited. It's our first baby. We wanted her to be a surprise. We didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. And we got like all the gender neutral things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
lots of grays, greens, yellows in terms of clothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep,
and that kind of stuff. And, it's funny, quick side story. Marin knew she was pregnant and pretended that she had her cycle. And then she saw how visible upset I was. And then she went, and then she was waiting a couple days for like something to come in to announce it to me. And then she felt so bad that I was disappointed that she came and told me that she was pregnant. She was trying to like pretend to like make it a surprise, but she's like, he's too sad, I have to tell him. But that happened. But
It's hilarious.
so Marin, we thought the traditional sense, like, oh, you give birth at a hospital, right?
Yeah.
So Marin was going to her appointments and stuff like that, and everything seemed great or whatever. But when we actually went to give birth at the hospital, she did not have a good experience there. And it was rough. And it got to the point where like I was going to write like a testimonial thing about like how bad it was. But then when I prayed to St. Joseph, I'm like, I probably shouldn't do that. I'm being serious. Like, it's like I was really angry for her. But I don't want to get into too much detail of the bad experience, but there is one thing that's funny that I do want to share. They took us to the wrong baby in the NICU.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Are you sure St. Joseph wasn't like, send it?
well, I was kind of like, I wrote it very critically because of it was very angry, right? Very passionate in it. But you know what I mean? Like with things like that, you got to pick and choose your battles, right? But that was just one thing of many.
Wait a minute. Did you guys like go up to the glass and you were like, oh,
so,
hey, baby?
Kinda. So what happened was the baby had like
messed up,
like those like pieces of cotton on its eyes and like tape over it, and it was in like a UV light. It was like, and we're like, and Marin's like, what did they do to our baby? You know what I mean? Like she was fine or whatever. And then they came in, they're like, oh no, that's the, and I took pictures of it. It wasn't the right baby. And they're like, no, your baby's over here. Like, okay.
Why are we here?
Yeah. So then I went. And later we saw the parents whose baby it was and didn't say anything. The hospital didn't want us to say it either. But like we went over to the other room and there she was, and she was fine, and she was drinking her bottle and didn't have the thing over the UV light. She was sitting in the thing.
Bro, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
That's wild.
But yeah, so like to make a long story short, you know, like she felt like I not even feel like she wasn't treated very well, and that the people had things that they said to me that were pretty snarky that I didn't appreciate, and they were kind of rude and stuff. But so Marin was sour to the hospital after that experience, like, and anyone would be. I was too, right?
Yeah.
So for Genevieve, who is I should know her the months at this point, 15, maybe 16 months old that she is now. We were like, let's do a home birth. Okay. So we looked into doing a home birth, and we saw, pretty much to make a long story short, it ended up being really expensive. So what we tried to do is, apparently there was like ways you can like get certain insurances and stuff. But at the end of the day, it was always like I made too much money for insurance to cover those things. Okay. So I was like, it is what it is. You know, there's nothing else I could do about it. And, you know, we talked to different like midwives that did it, and different like companies that do like encouraged home births, or like birthing centers and stuff like that, where you can go and that kind of thing. Because Marin thought that that would make her more comfortable because of what happened in the hospital, right? Being able to have control of that, being able to position herself the way she wants to be positioned, being in water, which helps with the contractions, like all these things. And they sounded really great, right? To me and to Marin, obviously to her more, because she's the one pushing the baby out, right?
She does most of the work.
Exactly. So, but when it came time to it, it was just too expensive. I didn't have the money to do it. So we were like, well, what if we just give birth at home, or just give birth at home? like without a midwife, without anything. Unassisted
home birth.
Called it, the official term, unassisted birth. We did, though, have a doula come in who was very helpful. We hired her, and she came in and helped us take care of things. But she actually got there after the birth had taken place. So I will tell a little bit more of that story because it's crazy. So we had no intention of going to the hospital. We didn't. We were like, okay, let's just see how this plays out. Now, what we weren't prepared for, though, was, I forget the official name of a birth that's like really quick, but Marin labored for 45 minutes and she was here. Genevieve. So what's kind of funny and ironic is that we wouldn't have made it to the hospital anyway if we had done one, because it would have been too fast. So it's kind of like almost like it was going to happen that way anyway, regardless of what decision we would have made. But we knew going in we wanted to do the home birth. So,
and just to be clear, like, when you say we had no intention of going, obviously, if there was a complication that came up, you would go.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Yeah.
To add more detail.
No, that's, because obviously, just for disclaimer purposes, that's important to mention.
Yes.
But like, because what you're sharing right now, actually, and thank you for the vulnerability with which you're willing to share here, you know, there's, I'm sure, going to be some stigma surrounding people that think that you shouldn't do it this way. But realistically speaking, what you're describing is like nature's way, the way that God designed it. If and the way that it was done for most of human history. And there's a lot of, because, we know a lot of families, of course, truly traditional Catholic families, that having 4 to 5 children means that you have a small family. Like, they have a lot of kids. And the more children that you have, because like the conventional wisdom that we learned growing up. So I'll kick it back to you in a moment, but you're actually touching on a subject that's near and dear to my family's heart as well. And we've helped, a number of people in this space. And kind of a weird fact about me, we got, so connected with the home birthing community that they were like trying to turn me into a male doula. At one point, because they were like, you've got the personality for it. Like you just make people so comfortable. And we were just really passionate about it because we've done home births. And, so we love it. We love, like, for anybody. And it's one of those things, like, there's no right or wrong way. Like, you have to follow your, just like there's no right or wrong way of like whether or not you find out the sex or not. Like, that's a decision that the parents have to make. But that's where the decision ought to be, is the parents, first and foremost. So if anybody's saying something otherwise, I firmly believe in advocacy in that area, because this is like, the building block of all civilization. To be able to do a podcast, to be able to be involved in government, to be able to be involved in education, to be able to be involved in anything, it all starts with the family. And you don't get to have anything. There are no police officers policing anybody if you don't have a family. Like, we are the reason that anybody gets to do anything that they get to do. So, and you have to take seriously taking ownership and responsibility for, life, right? This is, the building blocks of everything is life. So anyways, all that just to say, like, we, they like wanted me to be a male doula because we were just like, we took responsibility for the process and learning as much about it as you can. And it is nature's way. If you were to have a baby in the wilderness, like in the jungle or something, like, did you know, like, and let's say you didn't even have, the means to cut off the umbilical cord right away or whatever, what would happen is the baby would be birthed and would actually naturally crawl up the mother's stomach to latch and to breastfeed. Like, and the point is if you just leave it to nature, like, nature knows what to do. So, and with a lot of those large families, it's actually almost like the norm, from what I've heard, that they have the baby on the way to the hospital. Because the more kids you have, the quicker labors tend to go. Yeah. Right. So that's just like, that's actually, maybe normally by the second kid, that's not the norm. Like, but then again, every birth is going to be different. So anyways, I want to kick it back to you as you're sharing the story. Like, I just felt like it was important to put that in there for people. Definitely. To realize, like, this isn't some willy-nilly decision. Like, this is a big decision, and a lot of thought goes into it.
Yeah, 100%. Because, like, I am a skeptic when it comes to a lot of different things, because I come from, and how do I say this where it would make sense? I didn't come from a family of strong Catholic background who believe in the types of things that you just described, right? Or see the value in those things, right? It's just kind of like systematically, like, you follow it this way, right? That kind of thing. We didn't get into that as a family later in my life. I was still a child, but, like, later on. So that carries with me even now. And I'll be the first to say I'm still skeptic of a lot of different things that, where maybe my wife's more open because she came from a background where that stuff was okay and encouraged and stuff like that. And I didn't, right? So we clash sometimes on that. Sure. And this was one of them, right? So I was actually very against giving birth at home for a while. And then I had to use faith and prayer and conversation with Christ to get to that point where I said, okay, let's do this, right? It wasn't just like an overnight thing, like you said. It took a lot of struggle for me personally. Marin too, but she was obviously more on board than I was on it. So it was almost like she felt like she needed to convince me, right?
Sure.
So anyway, back to the birthing story, just real quick. we were getting everything set up to have the home birth. Like we actually bought things, like bought a pool, bought like the thing you used to suck the stuff out of their nose when they're first born, and like the tissue pad stuff to clean up blood and things like that, right? All the things that you'd have at the hospital. And I didn't have time to do any of that. She was like, I don't mind being graphic. She's screaming. She's this and that. I call the doula because she was going to, consult with us, right? She legally, couldn't actually help us birth the baby because that's not within her medical thing, but she was there to kind of coach us, right? So we were calling her and being like, oh, I think she's ready. And she's like, oh, is she actually ready? I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure she's ready. So before the doula even got there, I went to check Marin. I'm like, Marin, I got to check you. Can I just check you really quick? She's like, yeah, go ahead. Genevieve's head was already fully out.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm going to end up having to deliver the baby. As soon as I seen her head, I'm like, I got to deliver. It's happening right now. So I said some prayers and I did it by myself. I was mostly praying to St. Joseph when I was doing it, but then Genevieve slipped right out. I caught her. I didn't drop her. Everything went fine. Yeah. Everything was perfectly fine. I was terrified. No one was there to coach me. You know what I mean? I was like, I did it by myself. You know what I mean? Without her there, the doula. And then we called her up all excited after. Marin knew what to do after. I was just in shock. So I had to like, what time is it? To write down on the thing. And how much does she weigh? And like, I'm thinking all these different things, right? But Marin was like, no, do this. So I called her up and she came and she really helped. She helped us clean up and different things like that. She was very helpful.
That's good.
But
then do your laundry.
I think she did. Yeah.
They make you a meal.
I don't know if she did bring a meal. Actually, you're right.
That's a good doula.
Yeah, and she did do our laundry. Doula. You're right. She did all those things. I actually forget.
Yeah, that's what I would do if anyone ever hired me.
Yeah,
I personally feel like men shouldn't do it unless maybe for an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like that's something for women to be there, like modesty wise.
Yeah,
just fully doxing myself in terms of what I think about that, but it's good that you had the full experience with.
Yeah,
yeah,
and then so then after she was born. It went great. She was healthy. Everything was fine. We didn't have to worry about like the stuff at the hospital they do that, we don't like that they do after they're born, like with the cream and the eyes and the shots and stuff like that. But the only challenge I had actually after she was born was the legality of it, because I had to fish around and find out how to get her a birth certificate. And I didn't have half the information that we needed to have that normally the hospital would fill out or a midwife. So,
but it has to be legal.
Well, yes, it was. But like
good. I'm glad he's not sharing a story that's not.
Yeah. No. Everything was good. It here's what happened. Like I don't mind sharing this on.
Let's go.
As long as you'll let me share it.
Sure.
So, quick version of it was, I called the town and I told them the situation, and they were like, "You got to come here." They're like, "You need I'm canceling all my meetings today. You need to come here today." I was like, okay. So I drove in. They're like, "You the birth guy?" I'm like, "Yep. Come over here."
The birth guy?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I
also
came
known
over.
as dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I came over and they're like, "Fill this out to the best of your ability. And then I'm going to fill out this other side." So, after we did all that, they were able to get us the birth certificate, but then we had to go to the Social Security office to get a card, and you needed some forms of identification that I didn't have because she was a new baby, and normally the hospital handled that stuff. So it really stressed me out, actually.
Yeah.
And we also needed to fly on an airplane shortly after that. Not when she was right born, but a couple months later. And
so you need to have your stuff.
Yeah, you need to have that in order to be able to get an infant ticket, to be able to sit on your lap and all that stuff. So I was worried we might not even be able to go on this vacation and stuff like that. So there were a lot of stressors there. So after all of that, now third baby, right? We're like, let's get a midwife this time. Like, as cool as it was to do it unassisted, we're like, I will find a way to pay for having that. Like I said, as cool as it was, it's just more stress relief to have a professional there who could take care of those things that I don't have to do myself. And in case something did happen, they can identify things that maybe I wouldn't have been able to send, like where we might have to go to the hospital for an emergency and those types of things. And that's where we ended up settling. So for this, this new baby, we're going to do home birth again. We like the home birth, but maybe have it assisted this time with a midwife. So that's where we're at.
Well, you know what they say, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, exactly.
And, well, yeah, I appreciate the maturity with which you've progressed in that decision making, you know, and man, thanks for sharing that story too.
Yes.
That's intense. So unassisted home birth, and the doula ended up making it after. So you didn't expect to, I mean, I guess you were going to do it no matter what anyways, but you didn't expect not to have a coach right there for you.
Yeah, that's the thing. As I was expecting her to be like, literally, like I imagine it almost like she was either like standing next to me or like kneeling next to me or something and being like, oh, you know what I mean? Like telling me like, you could do this or this, you know what I mean? That's how I thought of it going. But, yeah, just like, yeah.
Well, and by God's grace, everything happened as it was supposed to. And like you said, the timing of it would have been that you would have been having the baby on the way to the hospital anyways.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of stories about that where the baby is born in the vehicle.
Yeah.
Like either on the road or you pulled over and, you know, and it's like, how do you mark that on the documentation?
Yeah, I know, right?
We were in the Walmart parking lot, and you know,
one of my dad's cousins, one of his kids, that was in the car. They didn't make it to the hospital.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, so
it happens.
Oh yeah, it does. It does. And this is the kind of wisdom that people that aren't thinking about going the traditional route just don't think about. You know, like there's other things. I'll probably do an episode at some point because I'm trying to provide, you know, resources for people that like you don't necessarily find them. Like I like how, like going back to the way your brain works when you were finding new ways to use AI. Like that's the thing too, man. Like we're trying to find ways to bring information that like maybe isn't as well known or accessed. Like there's papal documents that I have researched, going to put my theologian hat on for a second, where for the past 3 centuries, the popes have been consistently clear that if you have, you know, children that have not reached the age of majority yet, like the mom is to be home. Like that's the actual Catholic teaching. And you'll get a lot of people that like, oh no, that's outdated, or no, that's an option, or you know, or you can swap the genders on that. And that's just not the case. And so it's just one of those things, along with like a conversation about home birthing or a conversation about homeschooling. It's not that we're saying like, you know, one way is better than the other. It's just that there's a way to live your life that's actually faithful to what the Catholic Church has always taught, but you need to be armed with the information in order to realize like there's different ways to do your home birth that are cost effective but safe, right? There's different ways to have, you know, multiple children, and, you know, you're going to have a different kind of a birthing experience with the more kids that you have. Another thing that we learned, like totally went against what we thought was the case. Like when we got married was like, oh, if we start having kids from my wife being in her mid 30s or beyond, that there's like a huge increased risk of like pregnancy complications or birthing defects or potential challenges there. And they were like, actually, that's only true if that's like your first or second kid. And we were like, wait, what? And it was like, yeah, it took the pressure off. It's like, no, like when you have lots of kids, because if like you're not contracepting, right, which of course is the Catholic teaching, you know, contraception is absolutely forbidden, then as long as you have your first few kids before your mid-30s, like you actually don't run into those kinds of issues as frequently.
And, you know, to add and prove your point, in my own family, my aunt Same thing. She had kids in her almost, I think it was late 30s. And she has 15 biological kids. She would be like the example of like the cliche for Catholic families, but it's fantastic, right? She birthed them all naturally. They're all great. They have all their personalities. It's fun to be at a party with them.
Oh my goodness,
you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's fantastic, right? And society looks at that and says, "Oh, that's gross," but actually, it's the greatest thing ever. It's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm an outsider looking in too. You know what I mean? Like, I'm perceiving that like, no, every time we see Aunt Julie, it's a party. It's great. It's fun. It's like, exciting.
They literally bring the party.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, when they're there, it's a party.
For real. Like, and it's kind of funny because their perspective was also the same for us. I only had 5 siblings, and they were like, "Oh, we're going over the Mrugalskis. Oh, we're gonna hang out with them and this and that." And even though they beat us in number, the excitement in the family bond there never deterred. So I know that was a little off topic from what you said.
No, you're right. But that's the point.
Yeah.
He had kids, going up into the latter stages of a woman's biological clock, and there's no issue there.
Yeah.
Because the body knows what to do. So my point is this is the kind of wisdom that, you're not going to get in, let's say, a public school. I know I've worked in these places. And you get these teachers that they hate kids. They're just like, and in some sense, you're like, I guess I don't blame you because you're getting some pretty intense experiences, but like, they don't have kids of their own. And it's different because it's like they're outsourcing their experience with children in that kind of a setting. And I've literally physically witnessed this. Like, they pull up statistics and teach statistics that on average, it takes hundreds of thousands of dollars to raise a kid from birth to 18 per kid. And that's why you should only have 2 children total. And it's like, that's so not true.
I don't believe it.
That's not even
the math
close
never
to
even
true.
added up because like I think about even my kids now, and I probably haven't even spent. I'd have to actually go back.
Probably
and do
the
math,
most
but
money you're spending is on the taxes for the schools that you might not even.
Well, yeah, that probably for real though.
That's probably the biggest expense because you can homeschool a kid for $600 a year.
Yeah,
that's it. So, anyways, we've given a little teaser of all kinds of interesting topics that can come down the pipe, but I wanted to just thank you for really highlighting this topic, like the raw reality of, trying home birthing in different ways, including unassisted, and, learning from the experiences and choosing some best practices moving forward so that other people can learn from this. Mm-hmm. Like this is the kind of stuff that's, people wouldn't even think, oh my goodness, like we could do this, but don't go on a flight in the next couple months. Like get your paperwork, get your ducks in a row. And if you would have thought of that before, having the actual birth, you probably would have had all that stuff ready to go right away.
You're right. Actually, I didn't know what to expect. I had to learn it all. So, yeah, I had to learn on the fly. There was no other way to know. Like I tried to do some research. It's not like I was being completely ignorant to it,
sure,
but nothing was what it said it was gonna be.
Right.
Like information you find online or from like official government websites.
Because they don't,
yeah.
A lot of them are just assuming what you called traditional way. But I would argue the traditional way is actually the home birthing, not the hospital route. That the hospital route is the more novel way, actually. But I mean, tomato, right? Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the point is make an informed decision that works for your family.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And it'll be interesting because we'll have covered the gambit with this third kid. We'll have done hospital, unassisted, and home assisted. So like, I don't know what other way you could give birth than those 3 ways.
I think from there, it's just trying different positions. You don't have to go the stirrup route. You could just do something totally different, new, underwater, But yeah, no, you can definitely have fun with it, and it's a precious and sacred time of life, literally like the introduction of life to this world. And what a blessing it is as men to be able to be there for our women and to be a part of that process. Right. I think more women out there are looking for stuff like this too. So, just thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing your wisdom about AI as well, and everything else that we covered in between. Do you have any like final words of wisdom or closing remarks before we sign off?
One thing I would say as it relates to all the topics that we talked about is that sometimes you'll want to do what God's will is. And as it relates to these different things, like maybe you're trying to make a hard decision, like, am I going to do an at-home birth or hospital or homeschool or not, or even like adopt AI, not, that type of thing. And one thing to keep in mind is that, as long as you're trying to live in the light, in the way that Christ asks us to, within the bounds, if there's a better word for it, of the Catholic Church and what's right and stuff like that, you got to taste the fruits of things, right? So like you can give it a try as long as it's not sinful, as long as you're not doing anything against the church, right? In those indecisive things where it might feel like God may care or may not care. Just pray about it, right? Approach God about it. Go to adoration. Do those types of things, right? Because you'll find that in the silence, you hear the answers to those things. And it might not be in the timing that you want, but it'll happen, right? God never lets you go, right? Like I said before with the home birth especially, like I was a skeptic of it for a real long time, and Maren was trying to help me, and it didn't take till doing things like adoration and getting close to the time and so on and so forth that I was really like, okay, this is what we got to do, right? And it just happens naturally. You don't need to force anything when it comes to this stuff. Just try to make it organic. Just make sure you're not being sinful in the actions. And, I think that God will help guide you as long as you're doing it that way.
Amen, my brother. Amen. Thanks be to God. And, if you enjoy content like this, we exhort you, like, subscribe, share, and be part of the conversation. We'd love to hear you in the comments section below. Let us know how we did, what you'd like to hear more about. And then finally, if you'd like to sign on for some life coaching, check out therichdawn.com. That's therichdawn.com. And God bless you. I'm being brought back to what that retreat was like. It's like the first time I shared my trauma story.
I remember that.
Ever.
I remember that. That was one of the few things I remembered from it, actually.
I mean, it was kind of intense.
Yeah, because like I know other people spoke too, but that was the one that I was like, wow. not in a bad way. Like,
No.
like the glory of God was so great in your story that it was like, how could you say he's not real? There's people who believe it exists.
Thank you.